Hi, marketers. This is Dot, and welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast. With me here is Laura Nguyen, founder at Soul Solutions. We will discuss maximizing marketing team performance for organizational success. I know you guys are ready, so let's do it. Laura, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We are discussing something that, in the light of what I call the cold recession, I think is something that is really needed in 2024. So if you're listening, you're probably doing some career transitions or, you know, try leading or even leading a team, or just mourning a recent layoff. You know, again, I'm not to make fun of that. I've been laid off before. This is something that you might find very useful. But before then, we want to learn more about Laura herself. Do you want to tell us about that? Your background, your role. You've been there, done that. Tell us about the journey.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to. So I've spent the last 20 years in marketing leadership roles. And, I started on the agency side and then transitioned to the brand side. And over the course of my career, have worked across B2B and B2C businesses. In the last organization I was at, I was able to help grow our CAGR by 30% over a 5-year time period. And then I decided to open Soul Solutions, which really is founded on data-driven marketing. So helping mid-size organizations, 10 million up to a billion, be able to focus on performance marketing and really maximize, how are they generating leads and building relationships with their customers.
Makes sense. The first thing you mentioned in your profile there leads me to my next question. So this will be my 14th year in marketing. I'll say 7 years of that has been spent on the brand side. Some people call it customer side. That doesn't really make sense. So I'll stick to brand side. Um, but in the on the agency side, and it's very humbling to see those crossovers happen. How do you work with business people or marketers making to make similar, I would call them crossovers? I love the comics, so you're always looking forward to crossovers between DC and Marvel. Hopefully, before I die, that happens. But yeah, how do you help people with those kinds of crossovers? It might not necessarily be a marketing crossover, it could be a business crossover. Again, not to be um, twisted with total 180-degree career crossovers.
Yeah.
For example, I was a doctor, now I want to become an accountant. That's not what I'm talking about. Just talking about within the same sphere, within the same field, and just making these different changes, which could be very easy for some people, but hard for some people as well. Is that something you've come across with the people you work with?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, I think a couple of things, which is the transition from going agency to brand, right? So, on the agency side, the benefit is, we can work across multiple brands, multiple clients, multiple verticals at the same time. So, your brain is able to kind of flip and switch to be able to work really quickly, come up with fantastic strategies, and work on how to execute those at speed. Now, those are all core skills that are transferable onto the brand side, right? I think when I was on the agency side, there was this belief of brands just move slower. But I'll share that of the brands that I've worked in, that is not the case, right? Like things can move as quickly as you want to push them based on the type of leadership and organization that you work for. And so the other piece is that typically you also are not just working on one product at a
Mhm.
given time when you go on the brand side. That to me was another misconception, right? And really, I was working at the companies that I had transitioned to. The three companies post agency all had over 100 brands. And the difference was, how do I, as someone who's coming in with this experience, be able to scale and speed based across those brands? And so, the benefit of having an agency transition over to the brand side allows you to take what you were really great at on the agency side and be able to position and pitch that internally as well to more of the brand side of that house. Now, let's say the brand experience person now wants to transition and go to the agency side.
Mhm.
And so there's a few factors that you have to understand as you're making that transition. And that is ultimately the transition I had made, right? I had spent essentially, 10 years of my experience on the agency side and then pivoted and transitioned the last half of my experience on the brand side.
mm,
And across those, now I'm back on the agency side as leading Soul Solutions as a consulting firm.
mm,
And so in that experience, all of the factors of being able to understand how organizations work, how they make decisions, what are the internally, potentially the political nature of those organizations of
I was,
who has right, who has more say or influence over how decisions are made. All of those pieces now arm you with, going on to the agency side of being able to sell in solutions that are more fitting for that organization because you know who to talk to and also who to pitch and then how to transition that relationship to being of best service to them, which is
mm,
ultimately the key in any sort of relationship an agency would have.
mm. Yeah, I reconnected with my old boss on the client side. So most of my client side is financial services. Maybe I spent 1 year in tech, and this was one of the things that she mentioned. And she said for her being almost 20 years in on the client side. Oh, sorry, why do I say keep saying client side? On the brand side is ha- telling yourself you have two audiences. First audience is those who are going to, pay for your product or service and pay your bills indirectly. And the second audience is the stakeholders, the people that say, oh my, why can't we have a logo that dances? Why can't our B2B brand have a mascot and all these very funny ideas you get on the round table, or even on the board. um, and you're right, it's being able to manage all the scenarios and identify them is really the thing that helps with that as well. And I think you also need to know your nature as well. I think what helped me on the brand side was because it was a brand new department. So I had free reign to do everything I want. I was working for 6 months without even checking the appraisal objectives because they had nothing, and I was just trying to cover all the bases there. So there was a lot of free reign. For one, I would call myself an aggressive melancholy, which is a bit strange. You can't be gentle and aggressive at the same time. um but yeah, that may not be the case for somebody else. So you really need to know yourself as well on how you manage work and how you cope with consensus, because I sometimes always want to get things moving, but I need to remind myself that it's all about the consensus. Other people might be saying things that you are not saying. And so if you're trying to do the move fast and break things, it might be, as Jeff Bezos call it, you might be dealing with an irreversible error in marketing. And the scale is different as well. One mistake and something happens. uh a good example is an agency executes a PR campaign for an enterprise and it goes bad. The worst that happens to that agency is they get fired, they move on, they find a replacement, but the brand will have to do so much more repair work because of that incident. And the agency has moved on. So again, that doesn't mean that there are no issues on the agency side as well. If you've got a bit of experience, you might be able to relate to this. But yeah, it's really great to see the perspective that you've laid out in there. Okay, question. You mentioned, what you might be in the brand side and you are working with many brands within a small company, within a conglomerate. And we've seen a lot of that. Um, but my question is, in all that chaos, how can marketers and marketing teams know their product to market fit, which is what we really call it? How are they able to position an offering in a way whereby it helps businesses get higher sales, higher market share, good, customer service or customer success, and all these great things? Again, it may sound very simple or easy, but I doubt it. So please break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. So when we think about especially bringing a product to launch, and I love bringing products to market. That's one of my favorite things. And the reason I love it is because what's required to launch you into a successful launch, right, comes
Mm,
down to what you were talking about, those kind of building blocks, these kind of simple factors that in a lot of ways, when you want to move fast, you tend to skip them. And so a lot of understanding who your customer is. It's really basic bare bones of understanding the demographics of your customer, understanding, who are their influencers, who are the people that are influencing their decision, what channels do they prefer to be on, how do they talk, what's important to them. Those
mm,
psychographic and demographic types of compelling information is really important. So, like an example of this would be the previous organization that I'd worked with, right? Is that as we're transitioning from launching a product, you go through this really deep analysis of who your potential customers or target customers will be. The next stage is being able to understand what they need. A lot of the times, organizations will switch immediately to features and benefits of their offering without understanding who they're serving. And so, by taking your features and benefits and putting them in the hands of your consumers and letting them pilot test them and beta test it, are really great ways of understanding, is it working for them? Is it meeting their needs? Is it meeting their expectations? And what can you gain from understanding what their pitfalls are and their
mhm,
pain points are as a part of using your products? There's some really great tools that you can use, right, as a part of like user testing and those types of things to actually beta test the product to make sure that it works well. Then the
mm,
next stage is obviously like the optimization pieces of that. And then when you're prepping for product launch, it's really important then for messaging, content marketing, branding, all of that to then reflect all that consumer feedback, all of that gold that you got in the beginning and through the beta testing. Leverage those insights into how you're going to launch the product because that will position you for success. Now, it doesn't end at launch, right? And so the next key is once you launch, it's all iterative. Everything we do is iterative. And one of the
mm,
things I loved about digital marketing, right, is the whole conversion rate optimization piece of it. I think of everything as an experiment. And so we launch it and it's not said and done. It's a continuous optimization path from that point forward of how do you continue to solve the customer's needs and deliver the messaging in a way that's easy for them to understand and compelling for them enough to continue using it.
mm. That makes a lot of sense. And um, I thought again, this is being recorded the day after 2024 Super Bowl. Oh, is it a blessing or a curse, Laura, when you are given a lot of resources as a marketing team to say, guys, this is our lucky year. We are empowering you as much as possible. Is it always a blessing or a curse? And the reason I'm asking about that is sometimes you speak to CEOs who have built nine figure, in my world, marketing agencies, and they say sometimes it's actually better if you don't have enough money because it helps you to be creative. Yes, you might be scrappy, but you might be creative. But on the flip side, um, you know, investing in growth is key. So you tend to get stuck into as a startup without money into this thing of, well, this has worked for us. Let's stick to it. You don't want to explore new opportunities, knowing that consumer or customer behavior is always changing. So there are always on each side benefits and demerits to those as well. So is it a blessing or a curse to have great marketing resources, extra people, extra budgets, extra everything?
Yeah, and that is a wonderful question. It's a great question, and I'm answering it as a scrappy marketer, right? So, like, my point of view is gonna be, like what you were saying before, which is when you have a specific budget to work with that has an opportunity for growth, meaning here's
Mm,
your set budget, but if you're able to exceed what a potential growth target could be for your organization, and then you can get incremental dollars, right? That the cap is different versus you have unlimited budget from the beginning. The difference becomes you're able to kind of pilot and test and experiment at scale and speed, right?
mm,
So the learnings that you can get by putting something out there and understanding how things are working, and then making sure that you can really deliver what the results are that you promise, right? Which is likely lead generation,
mm,
versus impressions, then you're able to actually show the benefit of your efforts to then get incremental dollars. That's how I like to work and focus as I call myself, like I said, a scrappy marketer. That's how I like to learn and be able to advocate for more dollars and more budget. Now, the other side of that is, I think what happens when you have like essentially a massive budget or an unlimited budget becomes there will always be a demand or a need or a desire for more resources, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
kind of this concept of there's never enough. And when you're in that model, the other question becomes, how are you measuring yourself? And that's really the charge that I think most organizations should put out there, which is how are we measuring ourselves? How are we aligning around that measurement beyond vanity metrics and being able to show how it's actually propelling the organization and profitability and revenue forward? That's really what any organization is out there doing, right? That's their ultimate goal. And so it has to go beyond number of eyeballs, right? It has to go beyond potentially even just initial downloads. It's gotta be able to be sustained, consistent engagement across your platforms and products as well themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Good landing there. Especially in my world, podcasting. We're starting to think ahead on why the world now needs better engagement and better attribution for engagement.
Mhm.
Consumption rates. How long is this episode consumed? Are you able to somehow get this listener to listen to your episode and do a secondary call to action? From a lead generation perspective, that's one of the things that we're starting to look at. But yeah, a great response on that very random question. Who is not talking about Super Bowl these days? So
That's true, and I'm originally from Kansas City, so go Chiefs, right? So, like,
there we go.
I had a good night last night,
Yeah,
and so originally from Kansas City, and, I think we were very excited to watch the Chiefs game, and it's always fun to watch it as a family.
absolutely. In my house, it was about Taylor Swift anyway. Kid, 8 year olds wanted to see Taylor Swift. Greatness is good.
Yes, exactly, greatness is good, agreed.
Oh. Okay, so to the topic back here. One more question before the break. What does it make to take a marketer from being just a marketer to a marketing leader when it comes to managing teams and really influencing organizational success? I'm a scrappy marketer as yourself as well. Of course, I'm able to translate that to the enterprise level because I've been in the enterprise before. Um, but you know, just having a reflection here, it seemed like even after almost 14 years, I'm still in a very small team of maybe 4 folks direct, and then everyone else is like shared service. Um, and you start to learn a lot of things around that. You start to learn how it's important to control the creativity of your colleagues. Very, very key because when you were giving stupid ideas, you felt like your boss was too harsh against you. And now you've got the subordinate who is also giving you some very interesting ideas. And now you have to cut some of those ideas. Then it reminds you of yourself, right? That's just an example of the things you learn when you start to lead a team, especially in the marketing sides where there are always ideas flying around and there's a lot of coordination going on. So, what are some of those, I guess, I don't know if it's soft skills or attributes that you need to have take you from that level of not being a marketing leader to being a marketing leader? And tell us if there are also any business acumen influences to that as well.
Yeah, dots, that's a great question. So my other side gig is I'm a certified executive coach. And when I decided to like found Soul Solutions, one of the things that I wanted to make sure of was how can I give back in a different way? And so your question around leadership development is really, really important because when you think about the factors that lead to burnout, a manager actually has a greater influence and impact on someone's stress than their doctor or their spouse, which is mind-blowing, right? And so
Fine.
we can think in our, in our brains of like who are the really great leaders we might have had, and then maybe not so much great leaders that we've had as well, right? And so to your point around how to provide feedback to an employee is really important because the relationship that you build with an employee, I've always been a firm believer that, being a leader is the greatest responsibility that you'll have because you can impact someone's life and their day-to-day interactions so dramatically. And so when you're looking at shifting into leadership, I think it's understanding what that level of responsibility truly means. It's not just about taking what you were really good at and being able to shift that now and pivot it into a leadership role. So you might have been really great at, say, paid media, and now you've been promoted into a departmental leadership role. Well, that requires something different of you, right? You're not going to be handling the day to day anymore. Now you're talking about leading and developing people and stewarding people to achieve organizational goals. And that requires a mindset shift, and that also requires significant training. And in a lot of ways, organizations don't provide sufficient training to managers when they're making that shift. And so if you're going through that transition, some of the things that are really important is, I think of it as like a T in leadership. So
Right.
typically in T, in that bottom kind of core base, what you've been really focused on is kind of your core specialty. Well, one of the things that makes leaders really great, strong leaders really great, is being able to go across. It's about building allies, about understanding who the stakeholders are, understanding the dynamics within the organization, understanding how to champion for your team and your people. Like those are really those core skills that you have to gain and learn. And that all comes down to, right, communication. Like at the end of the day, it's a strong strength of communication. Understanding communication, meaning as you're working with your direct reports. So one of the things I've always said is, let's say just because I wouldn't do it that way doesn't mean it's wrong. And so
Right.
when in a one-on-one, manager should be speaking like 20% of the time. And the truth is, that's highly unlikely that's actually happening. I can think of maybe one manager throughout my entire career that spoke 20% of the time in a one-on-one. And the reason is because having to coach someone that you're leading to come to solutions, right, helps them develop. And they might come up with an idea that maybe you wouldn't do it that way, but if it leads to the same outcome, then now if you go down there, if you choose their path, then what happens is there's a deeper trust between you and them,
Yeah.
and there's a deeper trust that they have with themselves. And that self-confidence then propels them to be able to contribute more value to your organization, your team, and the entire collective, right? That's gonna be super beneficial to everyone. And so I think that's one of the keys is make sure that as you're looking at communication training and leadership training as a part of communication development, that's really key and important. And then the other piece I would just add to communication is self-awareness. And
Mm.
that's sometimes that introspective piece is it's more challenging, right? As you're transitioning into a leadership role, shifting from reacting to responding, taking that pause in those meetings when you might get a little heated or disagree, being able to navigate through some of those political conversations is really important for you as well. So understanding yourself so that you can better have an impact on the teams that you lead and the teams that you're a part of are really important.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what I'm going to do before getting the break is just share my, I guess, how everything you've said translates to me. So if you're listening or watching, um, I'm an aspiring marketing leader. That's the whole point of the podcast. It's not because I have now become a leader and I'm now giving back. No. And right now, communication sits at the top of, areas of improvement. Clarity is one of them. Um, I guess one of them also is being able to communicate an idea. When you are in art tech, things can be very complex. And I also could be very complex in my thinking as well. So they say a good writer is a good thinker. And when I heard that, I was initially, angry because I think very well. I'm a strategist. I'm a born strategist. But I cannot communicate well. So does that mean I don't think well? I don't think that's what that means. I think what it just means is when you're going to a level of an articulate executive, and you are not able to simplify your idea, then you need to either look at your proficiency in that idea or looking at your communication. So that's really where I am at, when it comes to that communication as perspective as well. Introspecting, of course. very key. I think I was something I've learned now is to be able to listen more, and speak less, or give feedback less, so that way you build leaders within your own leadership. And I think something else I've learned in the marketing world is it's okay if 100% of your ideas don't go well. We often make a joke here at Content Allies or Listener Talk that at least you'll get 80% of your ideas approved, which is outstanding for any organization. And if and that allows you to also be sincere with yourself if something doesn't work. Marketers are great at defending their work, even if sometimes it's wrong. And being true to yourself is very important because you are helping the company. It's real. It's beyond you. And I'm a man of faith. The good book says you need to treat your employers, and I'm just paraphrasing 2024. You need to treat your employers well so that an employee can treat your own company well. So that was actually written in there, and it comes out of being authentic with yourself and being realistic about your initiatives. I've done many campaigns, Laura, and some of them didn't work. I cry myself to sleep, and I'm fine the next morning, and that's okay, and that should continue because at the end of the day, it's beyond you. It's about the organization. So very, very good. As you were just saying that, I was just looking back, from the days of 2010. So thank you for taking me back memory lane with your responses there. It's
I'm
really,
happy to. I love you sharing that too, Dots. Just I think the reflection that you had around the communication piece of it, and I do wanna kinda, share, like, I'm a person of color, you're a person of color. I think there's a piece too, where and you think about English as a second language for us, right? That communication is really key, but authentic communication, I think, is where the power is, right? So instead of speaking from a place of, you have different ideas, you have a different perspective, right? Like we come from different cultures, and being able to communicate that and have that be reflective across who we are, how we lead, and how does that also reflect the type of content and messaging that we share because people of color may also be a part of the overall demographic of, who your target consumer is. All really important pieces that we have to understand. And it took me a while personally to understand that piece of it is, authenticity has always been a core value of mine. But having it come through now in every aspect of how I work and how I live is absolutely critical.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Guys, as you can see, you get a lot of things from podcasts like this one. You get not just the education, thorough education, you get the entertainment. You also even get a soap opera factor, people sharing the stories of their life. As you can, see in the past couple of minutes here. So please, all I'm asking for you is to share. Nothing else. Just take this episode, share with someone else that is looking to grow their marketing career, that is looking to even grow their business career or even sales career. There are many overlaps these days. And that helps that person. There are many other calls to actions that you could also do, that you probably know about. That is probably the most popular. People even use the word smash these days, but I love shares. I think the most popular people around, Jordan Peterson, and a couple of the other folks, in the past couple of years have gone viral because, their episodes were shared, not necessarily because they were liked. So please share this. We do everything we can to provide the best value possible within the time that we have. So that helps us out a lot. I have one more question for Nora, but before then, it's going to be the dots rapid fire. And before then is the commercial break I promised from our sponsor. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, guys. So, like I said, we have gone from the soft life to the rapid fire, the hot kitchen or the marketing court of law, as I usually say with every episode. So Laura is 3 questions. You say the truth and nothing but the truth. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm nervous, but I'm ready.
I know. So the first question, what is your favorite marketing metric apart from sales or revenue?
Um, Employee engagement. So I think the surveys that actually show how your team is engaged and your leadership capability as a leader.
Yeah, love it, love it. It's I was thinking about that this morning as well. It's free, first of all. So it's always a very, very good tactic to use. Okay. Second question. How long do you use social media every day for work?
Um, okay, so that's kind of hard. Let me think. So probably at least 2 hours a day. I've had to pull back, to be honest, because when I first started publishing on LinkedIn, I was spending too much time, spending way too much time on LinkedIn, and I was like, "Okay, I need to scale it back." So now I block times during my day. So, like, typically from, like, 7 to 8, I'm on LinkedIn for a little bit. I'll check in for a few minutes over a lunch, and at the end of the day, I'll kinda do a quick check-in to see how if I need to respond to people who've left me comments or send me messages and those types of things. So I am committed to making sure I respond back to people, and that is also part of what takes a lot of time. It's not just publishing, it's about the community side.
It's mostly about that for leaders these days. It's mostly about the, engaging with people and I spend about an hour. I think it might get to 2. Once I have more, bandwidth after too many episodes. Because I think, yeah, engagement is really what not just what the algorithm needs, but I think what people need in general. Just provide help
Yeah,
as
yeah.
much as possible. You know.
And I think it's, like, picking the platforms dots too is the other thing is, like so I try to focus, I'm really focused on LinkedIn. That's where I'm probably the most, publishing the most and engaging the most. I'll probably launch on Instagram here in March is the plan is to do more intentional, Instagram posts to try to get some expanded reach on what that looks like, but most of my, social media activity is LinkedIn.
I do LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. I started LinkedIn and X at the same time. But I Instagram, I saw it start from Statista very early in the year on how
Mhm.
Instagram is fast becoming a B2B platform.
Yes.
Last question. What is your favorite marketing quote?
My favorite marketing quote.
Yeah. Or business quotes. Business
Yeah,
quotes allowed as
yeah.
well.
So I would say it's probably a blend between life and work, and it's Albert Einstein's, "I have no special talents, I'm only passionately curious," and that quote has been with me for the last 30 years, since,
Wow.
when I found it when I was, in high school, and I think it's been extremely, extremely helpful for me because I like to approach all things, work and life, with curiosity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. That's really nice. Okay. So the last question. Speaking of being curious, personal training. It's all over the place these days. I don't know if it's because of also culture between what goes on in agency versus what goes on in brand. But even in the brand, it was not really, let me give you a good example. So I was working in the bank at some point, and I moved to an asset management company. They would send me to one marketing school down the street where I end up teaching the instructor. And but my colleagues in IT are going to South Africa, they are going to the UK, they are going to, even far in Asia from Nigeria. I'm like, guys, what's going on? You should take me to these places too. So it's very scrappy with marketers learning these days. At this point, I'm learning through avenues like this podcast, or maybe a guest writes a book and I buy it, or I use mostly audiobooks so that I don't forget the book in the library. Um, it's just very scrappy. You go on YouTube articles. That was how I built my career. I was a computer science major. So yeah, again, you could take some virtual courses here and there, to take those courses to go physically, it's a lot of money, and businesses will be like, we don't have this money yet. We know you are very important. Without you, we can do nothing. But it's a bit of a cost center. So I don't know if it's a perception with too much information in the marketing space, and so companies are not doing what they need to do. You highlighted something about extensive training for leadership.
Mhm.
Um, why do you think the ideal situation should be when it comes to a marketing career learning structure?
Yeah.
Am I just being fluffy with, you know, whether I need to get a flight or not get a flight, or is it just about whatever is useful that you can find? It doesn't matter how you learn. What is that like? What do you tell people?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So when I think about development, one of the things that I think is really important is it tends to be, and I love conferences like no other person, right? And I love being able to have the immersive experience of being able to meet other people, but also be able to get, lots of information at the same time. I think what tends to happen after a conference is, well, what's actionable? What can I go do with this information? And so one of the things that I work on as a part of Soul is we do essentially, coaching services. It's like fractional marketing coaching services for leadership teams.
Mm,
And so if you've got a relatively, let's say, immature digital marketing team, or a new digital marketing team that's coming in, being able to come in and have an executive coach that has the experience, right, of understanding what questions to ask, who to connect with,
mm,
all of the developmental areas of how to work with your team, how to prioritize the initiatives are really important. And so then what happens in those engagements is I work directly with their director of marketing, and we can work back and forth of understanding here are the areas that you can get the most, where the most effort's going to generate the most outcome for you,
mm,
right? So that way you're prioritizing your effort and energy and also your team's productivity around the outcomes of that. And I think that I've seen has been really beneficial. I've had executive coaches throughout my career, and they've been pivotal in my success. And so being able to also think about, like, especially for growing marketing managers, having, essentially equipping them with a coach will ultimately help propel them forward, not just on the strategic side of the house in terms of their practice, but also from the leadership side.
makes sense. Again, if you're listening, feel free to take those thoughts and take them forward. But again, I think those listening or watching are interested in following you. They're interested in exploring some of these solutions with you. Again, big appreciation to everything we've discussed here for being on the show. Great wisdom indeed. A lot of, almost tearfully joyful introspecting as well. Love all those highlights. So where can people follow you to learn more about you and become better marketers?
Yeah, love that. Great question. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Folks can find me on LinkedIn. It's Laura Nguyen, Nguyen, on LinkedIn, or soulsolutions.com, which is SOLLE solutions.com.
Yeah, guys, please do follow. And this comes to the end of the episode. It's been an amazing one. You can check all of the other ones that we've released at my website, slotsmarketing.com. Still have a lot more that will be releasing at a very fast pace as well. You can also subscribe, whether it's Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, any of those channels. Please subscribe and never miss an episode. I'd like to thank Content Allies, Desk Creek, and Listen Network for all their support. Till next time, guys, connect the dots.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Leadership Podcast, brought to you by Listen Network. There will be links to resources mentioned in today's show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.